What's going on, everyone? This is your light skin one of Tuskegee 87, aka Michael Joe Daddy, back here with you one more time for part 2 of the series Envision a Better Man for 2020. In part 1, we talked about what the perception of a woman is of a man, and we talked about why men do some of the things that they do and where this perception came from and what we can do to possibly understand this issue. But now what we're going to do in part 2 is transition into what is a man, and we're going to define a couple of things. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into it. You hear all the time, especially growing up, sometimes you may have even said it yourself, where you're telling a young man to be a man or to act like a man or to do this thing as a man. But a lot of times people don't actually tell you what it means to specifically be a man. They just say be a man and assume that you have received training, if you will, or have seen someone display those attributes of a man to you for you to emulate. But that's not necessarily always the case. And I find that a lot of times we always tell people to be a man, be a man, be a man, be a man, but they never show us how to be a man or tell us what a man is. And some people have their own definition of what it is to be a man. Some people feel that to be a man you have to make a whole lot of money. Other people feel to be a man that you have to be a leader of something. Some people feel to be a man that you have to do this thing or that thing or some other thing. And everyone has their different idea of what it is to be a man. But again, there hasn't been any clear-cut definition of what is a man. So I'm going to try to help that out a little bit. I'm going to try to bring a little bit of clarity to this question of what is a man. And you know, even we find out in the Bible where we hear the saying of be a man, but there isn't any direct correlation that says specifically to be a man do this thing. We do have to do a little bit of interpolation, but it is there. And we can find in the Old Testament where even King David told his son Solomon to be strong therefore and be a man. This was a charge from a father to a son. And King David was getting ready to pass away and Solomon was getting ready to take his place. So the father was trying to charge his son with the responsibility of being a man. One, because the father was going away, and two, because Solomon was getting ready to take over this kingdom. So he wanted to make sure he had the tools and knew what he was meant and charged to do. So he told him to be strong and be a man. But still, what does that really mean? David did follow up and tell him that on top of that, he needs to maintain the statutes that he had been given from God. He needs to exercise his testimony. He needs to do all of these things relating to God. And if he were to do these things, that he would be successful wherever he went and in whatever he did. But again, even in that passage, we really don't get a clear definition of what it is to be a man. We just get that Solomon needs to follow God's words for him to be successful. Now, a woman can do that same thing and still be successful. So that doesn't really define to us what is a man. But you know what really does help is as we progress on into the New Testament, where it talks about what it is to be a man, or the difference between being a child and being a man. And in 1 Corinthians 13 and 11, that verse talks pretty much about that. And it says that when I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. That right there is our first line, our first clue, our first inkling of what it is to be a man. Now, we're talking about childhood, right? So what is it that we're talking about when we're talking about reasoning like a child, when we're talking about thinking like a child, talking like a child? Well, to put it straight, most kids, their line of thought is about self and about frivolous things, the here and now and what they want. Their logic and reasoning isn't complete, it's flawed. Have you ever asked a child, did they do something that you watched them do and they said no, but you saw them do the thing? In their mind, the more they say no, or if they say no, the more it becomes true to them. So if they make it true to themselves, then they believe that no, they didn't do it, but they actually did do it. So now there's a flaw in their logic, in their thought process. And that's just one example there. I'm pretty sure a lot of you all with kids have seen this, or who dealt with kids can come up with a many number of ways or examples where a child's logic is somewhat flawed. So that's kind of what we're talking about in the line of reasoning. When a child is speaking, their subject matter of what they're talking about is elementary, is low level, it's not anything to be mindful of, if you will. You know, they talk about playing with toys, or they're talking about playing mostly, or watching a TV show, but they're not really thinking far out and thinking beyond what's right here and now. So their speech reflects that. So again, as you become a man, you have to put away all of those childish things. You have to put away that selfishness. You have to put away that frivolous things. You have to put away just looking at here and now. You have to see out further. You have to be able to take the blinders off and open up your perspective, because that's what a child does. A child is only looking at this small little piece. But again, as we always say, or as you've always heard, you got to look at the big picture. And that's what the adult or the manly mindset is to be. But how do you transform from that mindset to this one? And you have to renew it. That's all it is. You simply have to renew the way that you think. And a lot of times that comes with just knowledge of what's going on in the world. Just comes with, as they say, growing up. When you grow up, you begin to grow up in knowledge and grow up in understanding, and start to realize that this here and now stuff really isn't benefiting me, that I got to look further down the road if I want to become successful. So a man transforms his mind and renews it himself to start to think like that. He starts thinking more about other people, because now he's thinking about community. He's thinking about, what can I do to help other people? What can I do to advance someone else? Yes, I want to still be advanced, but I also want to advance other people with me. Some of the best leaders you'll see are leaders who are looking to bring someone else up. They're getting ready to head out, but they want to make sure that the people that they've left behind are going to be able to come up just as well. They don't want to leave them there and leave them as stepping stools. They want them to accelerate and succeed as well. And some of these thought processes are outlined, in the Bible as well, where it talks about, doing right by those who are oppressed, doing right by those who are fatherless, taking care of the needy, bringing justice to those who can't bring justice to themselves. These are all manly or adult mindsets that you have to have, and a child isn't necessarily going to be thinking about those things. Again, they're going to be thinking about self. What's good for me? What can I get from me? How can I get it from you if you got it and I want it? That's how a child thinks. A man is going to think, well, I'm glad you have it. Let me see who else needs something like that, and let's see if we can find a way for them to get it. So again, those are the difference between those different mindsets. And just throughout the Bible, it outlines different examples of the difference between what it is to be a man and what it is to be a child. Right? So now that we've kind of given a little insight on what it is to be a man, the biggest thing about this is, as we jump into this, is what actually defines a man. So we've identified being a man is opening up and broadening your thought path, your thought process, your verbiage, your speak, what you're talking about bigger things, more important things. But now we have to define the man. You can have a good man, you can have a bad man, but what actually defines a man? And the biggest thing that defines a man is what comes out of that man's heart. Because whatever comes out of that man's heart, or what is in that man's heart, is going to come out of him. And a lot of times we see that even in the Bible, it talks about that, lust, sexual things, sensuality, lying, stealing, cheating, killing, adultery, fornication. All of these different things are coming out of the wickedness of a man's heart. But if the man's heart is given to God, then now God can start to work on that heart and bring out good things. Because one of the other things that defines a man is how he loves. A man is supposed to love. A man is supposed to have compassion. And I know society, a lot of times, a man loving or expressing loving can sometimes be seen as, he's soft, or he just doesn't have what it takes, or something of that nature. But Jesus himself had compassion. Jesus himself had love. Jesus himself took the time to deal with those who were without, to help the children, to help the needed, to help those who were downtrodden and belittled and things of that nature. But yet he was still a man, and so he laid out a pathway for all of us to follow after, to ensure that we do the same things. So one of the biggest things that he talks about is that whatever you do, let all your stuff be done in love. Even in Corinthians, it talks about being alert, standing firm in the faith, acting like a man, and being strong. Now, where have you heard that before? Isn't that something that King David told his son Solomon to do? To be strong and show himself a man? Now here we are seeing that reiterated again, but now we're further quantifying that, and we're talking about that a man must do all things in love, have a devotion to some type of ministry, be subject to men who labor and who work. So that's something else that defines a man, being amongst other men, because again, we're social creatures. We need to be there to work with other people. That's just how we were designed to be. So for a man to have those attributes, and like we were talking about before, showing yourself a man, you have to be around other men who are doing good things, men who are operating in love, men who are devoted to a ministry, men who are laboring with that ministry. Now, we're not talking about just joining yourself with just men who are just doing things that aren't necessarily beneficial or helpful or yield anything relative to a good cause. We're talking about yielding yourself and becoming part of an organization that strives and seeks to do good by others and not just themselves. And even better, following along with the will of God, because again, at the end of the day, God is the one who created us. Whether someone believes it or not, that is the truth. Again, I can look outside today and see that it's raining, and I can believe it's raining because it's clearly raining there, but somebody else can say, oh, it's not raining right now, even though you all are looking at the same thing. Just because they say something isn't happening doesn't mean that it's not actually happening, because sometimes people like to put blinders on themselves. Though they know the truth, they suppress it because they don't want to believe it. So again, these are the things that will define a man. Love, acting in love. Everything you do has to be in love, whether it be chastisement, whether it be criticism, whether it be anything that you do. It all has to be done in love. If it's done in resentment, then it means nothing. A man named Paul once said that he could speak with tongues of men and of angels. He could give himself, all of his stuff away to the poor. He could submit his body and sacrifice his body to be burned. But if he doesn't do any of these things in love, then it means nothing. He could have given everything away. He could have been a martyr. But if he didn't do it with love, it meant absolutely nothing. It wasn't worth anything. And that is what defines a man, is what is in his heart. Is love in his heart, or is wickedness in his heart? Is deceit in his heart? Is lying, stealing, all of these things in his heart? Now, the good thing is if all those wicked things are in his heart, he can be transformed. He can renew his mind. He can thereby clean out his heart. But that is going to take, one, acknowledging that there is a problem. Two, seeking out that help. And sometimes that help may have to go beyond just the psychological, the mental, or the physical help. Sometimes you're going to have to get that spiritual help. And the only one who can really help you grow and be what you need to be is the one who created you, the one who gave you your spirit in the first place. And that person is God. And again, whether you believe it or not, that's the truth. There it is. So to sum this all up, a man is defined by what is in his heart and what he lets come out of his heart. A man is defined by his mentality, his thought, what he thinks about, how he reasons, how he talks, what he talks about. So again, his heart, his mind can be transformed from the childlike nature to a adult-like nature or manly-like nature. He needs to join himself with other men who are doing good, and he needs to stay away from sensual things, because that is what's going to draw him back into that childlike being or action, if you will. And everything he needs that he does must be done in love, because again, if he can do that in love, then everything else will change around him and in his life and in other people's life. So again, I hope this was beneficial and informative to some of you all. Look, stay tuned for part 3 coming up soon, where we're going to be talking about the man and the husband, where we elaborate a little bit more on some of these topics that we talked about. Again, talking about selfishness and communication and other things as well. Hey, if you have any ideas or recommendations of videos that you want to see, or you want to hear more elaboration about, or you want a better understanding of the Bible, just drop it down in the comments. Again, I don't do this to get views by YouTube or get paid by YouTube. As you can tell, I don't have any advertisements on these videos, but I do this because I want you to better yourself in whatever area or aspect in life that you're dealing with. So again, if you got any questions, concerns, comments, don't understand something, drop them down. If you want to know the references I use, please drop them down in the comment below. But yeah, definitely like, subscribe, check out this video, check out this playlist, and hey, look, this is Tuskegee 87 reminding you all to straighten up and fly right. Also reminding you that you got the power to make it do what it do. So let's get it done. All right, I'm out. Peace.